to Labour's plans for a mansion tax on homes worth more than £2 million. Polling suggests the public like the idea, but it's got some high-profile critics. Hollywood star Angelina Jolie even suggested yesterday she might not move to London because she's quite responsible about money. Only quite responsible, though. Former England football star Sol Campbell isn't a fan either. He'll join us in a moment. But first, here's his soapbox.
We will use the proceeds of a mansion tax on homes above £2 million.
An Englishman's home is his castle, but under Labour's proposal for a mansion tax, that castle is under threat. Labour's plans to hit those properties valued over £2 million will penalise those individuals who have done well for themselves. Ed Miliband keeps banging on about fairness in society, but this tax is anything but fair, and it's flawed. Over the years, I've paid millions in income tax and stamp duty, but I'm being punished for investing in a property portfolio. I don't rely on offshore tax havens, and I don't want to invest in stocks and shares, as we've seen how volatile that game has been since the financial crash. I see this as a tax on aspiration. Labour would be better off targeting companies like Google, Amazon, Starbucks, making them pay a fairer level of tax, rather than picking on people like me who have already paid their dues 10 times over. These companies must pay their way. If Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls wants to raise more money from the housing sector, he should consider a separate council tax where it is levied on how much people are earning. If people are earning very little, they pay less. People can get their heads around that. Now that would be fair.
And Sol Campbell joins us now. Welcome to the Daily Politics. Surprise, surprise, people will say, somebody like you, a rich ex-footballer who has a lovely property, why shouldn't you pay a little bit more?
Well, the little bit more is going to be a hell of a lot for me. And I'm not going to be the only one in that boat, really, because we're kind of concentrating and looking at London. But when you look at places in Northumberland and maybe the Golden Triangle in Yorkshire across to Manchester in and around those suburbs, you know, that's way away from London and oligarchs. This tax is flawed and, you know, is basically not fair at all.
What do you say to that, Aaron Smith?
I think it's nonsense. And I looked up Sol before coming here and I saw that, Sol, you've got a £25 million house in Chelsea that you just put up for sale. You've got a big country pile in Northumberland and another flat in Chelsea. And I also saw that the place you got in Chain Walk, you were renting out, I think, for £75,000 a month. Now, we're talking here about...
That didn't happen.
OK, well, you can tell me whether the other things are right, but you've just put one up for sale for £25 million. We're talking here about £3,000 a year extra that you would pay.
What, on a £25 million property?
No, it would be progressive. On a £2 to £3 million property, it would be between £250 and £300 a month, and it would then be progressive, as Sol suggested, up the income strata. Now, I think people in this country who are frankly struggling under this government will have zero sympathy with millionaires like you pleading poverty. It's just not going to wash, Sol.
So if you had a place in Hackney, bought it about 10 years ago, maybe, I don't know, £300,000, it probably is well over £2 million. It can happen in London. People moved out to those expensive areas.
£300,000 to £2 million in a couple of years is
And also, what if
unlikely.
a crash happens and your property actually goes down? What happens there?
Well, as we said,
with this tax, you'd actually wipe off 20, 30, 40% of property prices, for sure.
If you went down in value, you pay less. But crucially, if you were earning less than £42,000 and you'd bought a house and it had gone up in value, you'd be exempted from this until you sold that house. So someone who were, I don't know, somebody who lived in a house for 40 years in Hackney and it had gone up to north of £2 million, they wouldn't pay until they sold it.
But you pay 7% tax.
Protested about this.
There's enough tax in the system. What I'm saying is, right, you've got Google, Amazon, Starbucks, etc. These guys are not paying their way.
Yeah, agreed, and we've got to tax them efficiently as well.
Would you be prepared to pay it then? I mean, you used the comparison of somebody who perhaps did buy a property an awfully long time ago, maybe a family home or an elderly person who couldn't then afford an extra, however much it's going to be, depending on the value of their home. Would you be prepared to pay more?
No, because my situation, I'm not earning what I'm earning 5 years ago, let alone now.
Right. Is it penalising aspiration? Is it penalising aspiration? Is it penalising aspiration? People who've done well, people who have climbed the ladder, if you like, and yes, are sitting on big properties.
No, I think it's absolutely nonsense to suggest that we shouldn't take unearned wealth, wealth that is sitting there in the economy, and try and use that to equalise things. We're talking about the NHS being underfunded today. We've said explicitly that this money would go to fund the NHS. Now, that is a good decision by a Labour government to support a service that people rely upon. And it is asking people like Sol, who says he's not a millionaire,
right.
but, you know, I looked at these properties, they look pretty expensive to me.
Not money-wise.
You know, but it is asking you to pay a bit more.
But that's a big difference. You know, I can't afford to be able to pay that type of tax. You penalising me for...
£3,000 a year?
No, it'll be more than that. You're penalising me for sticking out my neck and going for it.
Right, well,
because I could have lost it.
And also,
can we just cut it?
Is it a London tax, though? That's the key. Is it a London tax, which is why, actually, Labour politicians who are running for mayor, for example, people like David Lammy, don't like it either?
Well, it would affect 0.5% of properties in Britain. A lot of those would be in London. It would be a London tax. And it is about saying we've had a massive property boom and we've got gross inequality in this country. Gross inequality between those people who got the most, like Sol, and many people who don't. Well, I accept that, Sol. But you've now got a lot, and therefore I think it's fair to ask you to pay your fair share towards a better society.
What is wrong? Isn't it fair? I mean, isn't it fair that somebody like Sol, despite what he says, coming from nothing, risen to the top, should pay a bit more? Most of the public support it, and most Conservative supporters would probably say the same thing. Why shouldn't you pay more?
I think Labour's every instinct is to tax everything that moves.
Well, hang on. What's your bit? Why isn't it fair?
Let me answer. As Mining Class said last week, they'll tax a glass of water if they can. It's never about running the NHS more efficiently. It's never about recognising that we've just put 12.7 billion
I've asked
more
about
into
fairness.
it.
Is it fair that people like Sol Campbell should pay a bit more for their property?
When it comes to fairness, when people have worked hard, they try to make something of themselves in life. The answer from a Labour government shouldn't be come along and stop them and tax them, let alone the examples of people who've lived in a home for perhaps all of their lives and suddenly find that they're being taxed. The pensioner, the person who's not earning money. Now, Labour have said that there'll be exemptions. Can I just test this point? You want to raise 1.3 billion with this policy. You're going to exempt anyone who's earning less than 40,000. You're going to exempt pensioners, for delayed payment. And all of this is going to mean, together with the revaluation, which will cost 400 million to revalue the homes, a figure I know because I used to be the minister in charge, this means that you won't raise that money, which means that you'll have to start taxing homes not at 2 million, but at £1, at half a million, or as one of your frontbenchers said, at £400,000. That's what one of your own sides said.
Grant, and we're going to have to leave it there, but Sol Campbell, you're going to stay with us for the final item.